Anna and welcome back to my channel. 제가 유튜브를 올린 지 정말 오랜 시간이 지났네요. 그래서 제가 I want to apologize you all of them because I didn't it had been a long time that I didn't upload the YouTube. 그리고 한국에 와 있는데 겨울방학 동안 잠시만 와 있는 거예요. Now I'm in Korea, in Busan, and I'm here because I visit my grandma's house for a winter vacation. 자, 그러면 같이 읽어볼까요? 오늘은 다른 책으로 돌아왔는데 이 책 이름은 Mrs.Pepperpot Stories예요. 제가 이 책을 정말 즐겨 봤는데 말도 달 책만큼은 아니지만 그래도 정말 좋아하는 책입니다. 그럼 한번 읽어볼까요? Little old Mrs. Pepperpot. There was once an old woman who went to bed at night as old women usually do, and in the morning she woke up as old women usually do. But on this particular morning she found herself shrunk to the size of a pepper pot. And old women don't usually do that. The odd thing was her name really was Mrs. Pepperpot. Well, as I'm now the size of a pepper pot, I shall have to make the best of it, she said to herself, for she had no one else to talk to. Her husband was out in the fields and all her children were grown up and gone away. Now, she happened to have a great deal to do today. First of all, she had to clean the house. There was all the washing which was lying in soak and waiting to be done, and lastly, she had to make pancakes for supper. I must get out of the bed somehow, she thought, and taking hold of a corner of the eider-down, she started rolling herself up in it. She rolled and rolled until the eider-down was like a huge sausage, which fell softly on the floor. Mrs. Pepperpot, which fell softly on the floor, Mrs. Pepperpot crawled out, and she didn't hurt herself a bit. The first job was to clean the house, but that was quite easy. She just sat down in front of the mouse hole and squeaked till the mouse came out. Clean the house from top to bottom, she said. Well, I'll tell the cat about you. So the mouse cleaned the house from top to bottom. Mrs. Pepperpot called the cat. Puss, puss, licked out all the plates and dishes, or I will tell the dog about you. And the cat licked all the plates and dishes clean. Then the old woman would call the dog. Listen, dog, you make the bed and open the window, and I will give you a bonus of reward. So the dog did as he was told, and when he had finished, he sat down on the front doorstep and waved his heel so hard he made the step shine like a mirror. You'll have to get the bone yourself, said Mrs. Pepperpot. I haven't time to wait on people. She pointed to the windowsill where a large bone lay. After this, she wanted to start her washing. She had put it to soak in the brook, but the brook was almost dry, so she sat down and started muttering in a discontented sort of a way. I have lived a long time, but in all my born days I never saw the brook so dry. If we don't have a shower soon, I expect everyone will die of thirst. Over and over again she said it, all the time looking up at the sky. At last, the rain cloud in the sky got so angry that it decided to drown the old woman together. But she crawled under a bongshoe flower, where she started snug and warm, while she rained poured down and rinsed her clothes clean in the brook. Now the old woman started muttering again. I have lived a long time, but in all my born days I have never known such a feeble south wind as we have had lately. I'm sure if the south wind started blowing the minute it couldn't lift me off the ground, even though I am no bigger than a pepper pot. The south wind heard it and instantly came tearing along, but Mrs. Pepperpot hid in an empty badger sat, and from there she watched the south wind blow all the clothes right up onto her clothesline. Again she started muttering, I've lived a long time, but in all my born days I have never seen the sun give so little light in the middle of the summer. It seems to have lost all its power, that's a fact. The sun heard that it turned scarlet with rage, and sent a fiercely rage to give the old woman throat and stroke. But by this time she was safely back in her house and was sailing about the sink in a saucer. Meanwhile the furious sun dried all the clothes on the line. Now for cooking the supper, said Mrs. Pepperpot. My husband will be back in an hour, and by a hook or by crook, The pancakes must be ready on the table. She had mixed the dough for the pancakes in a bowl the day before. Now she sat down beside the bowl and said, I have always been fond of you, bowl. I have told all the neighbors that there's not a bowl like you anywhere. I'm sure if you really wanted to, you could walk straight over to the cooking stove and turn it on. And the bowl went straight over to the stove and turned it on. Then Mrs. Pepperpot said, I'll never forget the day I bought my frying pan. There were lots of pans in the shop, but I said if I can't have that pan hanging right over the shop assistant said, I won't buy a pan at all. For that is the best pan in the whole world, and I'm sure if I were ever in trouble, the pan would jump onto the stove by itself. And that frying pan jumped onto the stove, and when it was hot enough, the bowl tilted itself to the left and round onto the pan. Then the old woman said, I once read a fairy tale about the pancake which could roll along the road. It was the stupidest story that ever I read, but I'm sure the pancake on the pans could easily turn a somersault in the air if you really wanted to. At least the pancake took a great leap from the sheer pride and turned a somersault, as Mrs. Pepperpot has said. Not only one pancake, but all the pancakes did this, and the bowl went on tilting, and the pan went on frying until, before the hour was up, there were 30 pancakes on the dish. Then Mr. Pepperpot came home, and just as he opened the door, Mrs. Pepperpot turned back to her usual size, so they sat down and ate their supper. And this old woman said nothing about having been as small as Pepperpot, because old women don't usually talk about such things. 한 챕터 더 읽을까요? 그리고 한 가지 말해드릴 게 있는데, 이 내용이, 이, 미세스 페퍼폿이 이렇게, 원래는, 보통, 아줌마들처럼, 이렇게, 보통 아줌마들처럼 평범하게 살고, 크기도 다 똑같은데, 이 아줌마가 뭐랄까, 좀 특별하게, 어쩔 때 엄청 작아질 때가 있어요. 그러니까, 이게, 페퍼포트 이거 고추 이거 뭔가 고추통? 뿌리는 통 같은 거 있잖아요. 그만큼 사이즈가 작아져가지고 크기가 작아져서 이제 크기가 작아지면 집안일도 못하니까 막 자기 펫들이나 주변 동물들이나 이웃들한테 도움을 받으면서 다시 크기가 커지는 이야기입니다. 그러니까 보시다시피 여기서도 팬케이크를 만들어야 했는데 30개였나? 30 팬케이크를 만들었는데 사이즈가 너무 크기가 너무 작아졌잖아요. 그래가지고 다른 강아지랑 고양이랑 쥐들이 도와주면서 이렇게 서로 도우면서 하는 이야기입니다. 그러면 챕터 2도 읽어보겠습니다. Mrs. Pepperpot and the Mechanical Doll. It was 2 days before Christmas. Mrs. Pepperpot hummed and sang as she trotted around her kitchen. She was so pleased to the finish with all her Christmas preparations. The pig had been killed, the sausages made, and now all she had to do was to brew herself a cup of the coffee and sit down for a little rest. How lovely that Christmas is here, she said. That everybody's happy, especially the children. That's the best of all, to see them happy and well. The old woman was almost like a child herself because of the snack she had of suddenly shrinking to the size of a pepper pot. She was thinking about all this while she was making her coffee, and she had just poured her into the cup. There was a knock at the door. Come in, she said, and in came a little girl who was so pale and thin. Poor child, wherever do you live? I'm sure I've never seen you before, said Mrs. Pepperpot. I'm Hannah. I live in the little cottage at the edge of the forest, said the child, and I'm just going round to all the houses to ask if anybody has any old Christmas decorations left over from last year. Glitter of paper trains or a glass balls or anything, you know. Have you got anything you don't need? I expect so, Hannah, answered Mrs. Pepperpot, and went up into the attic to fetch the cardboard box with all the decorations. She gave it to the little girl. How lovely! Can I really have all that? You can, said Mrs. Pepperpot, and you shall have something else as well. Tomorrow I will bring you a big doll. I don't believe that, said Hannah. Why not? You haven't got the doll. That's simple. I bought one, said Mrs. Pepperpot. I bring it over tomorrow afternoon, but I must be home by 6 o'clock because it's Christmas Eve. How wonderful if you can come tomorrow afternoon. I shall be all alone. Father and mother both go out to work, you see, and they don't get back until the church bells have rung. So the little girl went home, and Mrs. Pepperpot went back down to the toy shop and bought a big doll. But when she woke up next morning, she was once more no bigger than a Pepperpot. How provoking, she said to herself, on this day of all days, when I had to take the doll to Hannah. Never mind, I expect I will manage. After she dressed, she tried to pick up the doll, but it was much too heavy for her to lift. I have to go without it, she said, and opened the door to set off. But oh dear, it had been snowing hard all night, and the little old woman sank deep in the snowdrifts. The cat was sitting in front of the house. When she was something moving in the snow, she thought it was a mouse and jumped on it. Hi, stop, shouted Mrs. Pepperpot. Keep you close to yourself. Can't you see it's just me shrunk again? I beg your pardon, said the cat and started walking away. Wait a minute, said Mrs. Pepperpot. To make up for the mistake, you can give me a ride down to the main road. The cat was quite reeling, so she lay down and let the little old woman climb on her back. When they got to the main road, the cat stopped. Can you hear anything? Asked Mrs. Pepperpot. Yes, I think it's the snowplow, said the cat. So you'll have to get out of the way, or will bury the snow. I don't want to get out of the way, said Mrs. Pepperpot, and she sat down in the middle of the road and waited till the snowplow was right in front of her. Then she jumped up and landed smack on the front tip of her plow. Then she sat, clinging on the dear life and enjoying herself hugely. Look at me, the little old woman driving the snowplow, she laughed. When the snowplow had almost reached the door of the Hannah little cottage, she climbed out nearest the side of the road, and before you could say Jack Robinson, she had landed safely on the great mound of the snow thrown up by the plow. From there she could walk right across Hannah's hedge and slide down the other side. She was shaking the snow off her clothes on the doorstep when Hannah came out and picked her up. Are you one of those mechanical dolls that you wind up? Asked Hannah. No, said Mrs. Pepperpot. I am a woman who can wind myself up. Thank you very much. Help me to brush off the snow and then let's go inside. Are you perhaps the old woman who shrinks to the size of a Pepperpot? Of course I am, silly. Where's the doll you were going to bring me? Asked Hannah when they got inside. I've got it at home. You have to go back with me and fetch it. It's too heavy for me. Shouldn't you have something to eat now that you come to see me? Would you like a biscuit? And the little girl had out a biscuit in the shape of a ring. Thank you very much, said Mrs. Pepperpot, and popped her head through the biscuit ring. Oh, how the little girl laughed. I quite forgot you were so small, she said. Let me break it into little pieces so that you can eat it. Then she fetched a thimble and filled it with fruit juice. Have a drink, she said. Thank you, said Mrs. Pepperpot. After that, they played a lot of good games. Ride the cocoa horse with Mrs. Pepperpot sitting on Hannah's knee, and hide and seek, but the little girl had an awful time trying to find Mrs. Pepperpot. She hid in such awkward places. When they had finished playing, Hannah put on her cloak with Mrs. Pepperpot in her pocket. She went off to fetch her beautiful big doll. Oh, thank you, she exclaimed when she saw it. But do you know, she added, I really rather have it to play with all the time. You can come and see me again if you like, said Mrs. Pepperpot. I'm often as small as a Pepperpot, and then it's nice to have a little hoop around the house. Well, of course, we can play games as well. So now the little girl often spends her time with Mrs. Pepperpot. She looks ever so much better, and they often talk about the day Mrs. Pepperpot arrived in the snowflower, and about the doll she gave Hannah. 끝났당. 그러면 우리는 다음 시간에 만나요. 바이 바이.